Imani Carter was 29 years old and completely exhausted. She'd spent the last 12 hours dealing with crisis after crisis at the Department of Children and Family Services, trying to place kids in safe homes, fighting for resources that didn't exist, and watching the system fail vulnerable children over and over again. Now she was climbing the stairs to her fourth-floor apartment. The elevator had been broken for 3 weeks, carrying 2 bags of groceries she'd bought at the discount store, using coupons and shopping only the sale items because her social worker salary barely covered rent, student loans, and basic necessities. Imani loved her job. She'd gone into social work because she wanted to make a difference, wanted to help kids who'd grown up like she had, in foster care and group homes, never quite belonging anywhere. But loving your job didn't make it any less exhausting or pay any better. She was on the 3rd-floor landing, her arms aching from the grocery bags, when one of the bags split. Cans of soup and vegetables rolled down the stairs, a jar of a pasta sauce shattered on the concrete, and Imani felt tears of frustration well up in her eyes. Hey, I got it. A warm voice came from behind her. Don't move, you're standing right in the sauce. Imani looked up to see Marcus, the building's janitor, already moving past her to start collecting the rolling cans. He was probably in his early 30s, tall and solidly built with warm brown eyes, and an easy smile that always seemed to brighten her day. He wore his usual work uniform, gray coveralls with a name patch that said Marcus, and had a maintenance cart next to him. I'm so sorry, Imani said, her voice thick with unshed tears. I'll clean it up. I just need to grab some paper towels from my apartment. You're not cleaning anything. That's literally my job. Marcus gave her a gentle smile. You look like you've had a rough day. Go on up to your place. I'll bring you your groceries in a minute. Marcus, I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm offering. He picked up the intact grocery bag and handed it to her. Go on. Put your feet up. I bet you haven't sat down in hours. Imani wanted to argue, wanted to insist she could handle it herself, but she was so tired. Thank you, she said softly. Really, thank you. Anytime, Miss Carter. That's what I'm here for. Imani climbed the last flight of stairs to her apartment, a tiny studio that cost way too much for what it was, but was all she could afford. She unlocked her door, kicked off her shoes, and collapsed onto her second-hand couch. 5 minutes later, there was a gentle knock. Imani opened the door to find Marcus holding a cardboard box with all her groceries neatly arranged inside, everything she'd bought except for the broken jar of sauce. One delivery, safe and sound, Marcus said, handing her the box. I put the frozen stuff on top so you can get it in the freezer quick. You're a lifesaver. Imani took the box, noticing how careful he'd been, how he'd even wiped off the cans that had gotten sauce on them. How much do I owe you for the pasta sauce? Nothing. It was an accident. Marcus. Imani. He said her first name gently, and she realized it was the first time he'd used it instead of calling her Miss Carter. Let me do this one nice thing for you. You work hard helping people all day. Let somebody help you for once. Imani felt her throat tighten with emotion. She couldn't remember the last time someone had shown her such simple kindness. Thank you. Really. Marcus smiled, and Imani noticed, not for the first time, how handsome he was when he smiled. Get some rest. And hey, the elevator should be fixed tomorrow. Got the parts coming in finally. You're fixing the elevator yourself? I'm a man of many talents. He winked and headed back down the stairs, and Imani found herself smiling for the first time all day. What Imani didn't know was that Marcus was watching her walk into her apartment from the stairwell, his jaw tight with tension. He'd wanted to do more, give her more, but he couldn't. Not yet. Not without revealing who he really was. Matteo Castellano pulled out his phone and called his assistant once he was sure Imani's door was closed. The elevator in the Madison building. I want it fixed tonight, not tomorrow. I don't care what it costs. Yes, Mr. Castellano. Anything else? Have someone leave a $50 gift card to that grocery store she uses in her mailbox. Make it look like a promotional thing, not like it's targeted at her specifically. Consider it done, sir. Matteo ended the call and looked down at his coveralls, at the name tag that said Marcus. He'd been living this double life for 6 months now, ever since he'd first seen Imani Carter moving into his building. He owned the Madison building, along with 47 other residential and commercial properties in Chicago. He owned restaurants, clubs, construction companies, and enough legitimate businesses to make him one of the wealthiest men in the city. He also owned less legitimate businesses, gambling operations, protection rackets, and the kind of enterprises that made him powerful in ways that didn't appear on any tax return. Matteo Castellano was, by anyone's definition, a very powerful man. But 6 months ago, when he'd been doing a routine inspection of the Madison building, something he did with all his properties, always wanting to see conditions firsthand, he'd seen a young black woman struggling to move boxes into a fourth-floor apartment, and something in his chest had shifted. She'd been so determined, carrying boxes that were clearly too heavy for her, refusing help from the actual movers. She'd had her natural hair pulled back in a messy bun, sweat dripping down her face, and the most beautiful, fierce expression of concentration he'd ever seen. Matteo had watched her for 10 minutes before. He'd approached, offering to help. She'd been suspicious at first, smart woman, but had eventually accepted his help. They'd gotten her boxes upstairs, and she'd offered him a bottle of water and $20. "I'm not taking your money," Matteo had said. "You just spent an hour helping me move. Please. Tell you what, you buy me a coffee sometime and we'll call it even." She'd smiled then, bright and genuine, and Matteo had felt his heart do something it had never done before, something terrifying and wonderful all at once. "Deal, I'm Imani, by the way." "Marcus," he'd said, giving her the fake name he'd been using for the day. He'd meant to correct it later, meant to introduce himself properly, but then he'd learned she was a social worker, that she'd grown up in foster care, that she was barely scraping by while trying to save the world one kid at a time. And Matteo had realized that a woman like Imani Carter would never give a man like Matteo Castellano a chance. She'd see the wealth, the power, the dangerous reputation, and she'd run. But Marcus the janitor? Marcus who fixed things and carried groceries and showed up when she needed help? Marcus had a chance. So Matteo had made an insane decision. He'd fired the actual building maintenance worker, giving him a generous severance and a job at another property, and had taken over the position himself. He'd spent the last 6 months learning to fix plumbing, repair electrical issues, and maintain a building, all while running his empire from his phone between maintenance calls. His second-in-command, Vincent, thought he'd lost his mind. His family thought he was having some kind of crisis, but Matteo didn't care. Because every day he got to see Imani, got to talk to her, got to make her life a little bit easier, and slowly, carefully, he was falling completely in love with her. Over the next few months, Imani found herself looking forward to her interactions with Marcus more than anything else in her life. He always seemed to be around exactly when she needed him. When her kitchen sink started leaking, Marcus had shown up within minutes of her text to the building management and had fixed it while making her laugh with stories about other tenant emergencies he'd dealt with. When she'd come home sobbing after losing a custody case she'd fought hard to win, Marcus had been in the lobby and had simply handed her a tissue and said, "Whatever happened, it's not your fault. You can't save everyone, but you never stop trying. That's what makes you special." When she'd gotten the flu and had been too sick to leave her apartment, Marcus had left groceries and medicine outside her door with a note that said, "Feel better. Building needs you at full strength." He never crossed lines, never made her uncomfortable, just showed up, helped, and made her days better with his presence. "You're too good to be a janitor," Imani told him one evening. They were sitting on the front steps of the building, taking a break from the summer heat. She'd just gotten home from work, and he'd been replacing light bulbs in the lobby. "What's that supposed to mean?" Marcus asked, amusement in his voice. "I mean, you're smart, you're kind, you're good at everything you do. You could be doing something that pays better, has better benefits." "Maybe I like what I do. Maybe I like being useful. But don't you want more? Don't you have dreams?" Marcus looked at her, his dark eyes intense. "I have everything I want right here." Something in the way he said it made Imani's heart skip. She'd been trying not to think about Marcus as anything other than a friend, but it was getting harder. He was attractive, yes, but more than that, he was good. He was the best man she knew. "Marcus," she said quietly, "can I ask you something personal?" "Anything. Why aren't you married or dating? A guy like you should have women lining up." Marcus laughed, but there was something sad in it. "I'm waiting for the right woman. Someone who sees me for who I really am, not who she wants me to be." "Have you found her?" "Yeah, but the timing's complicated." Imani felt an unexpected pang of disappointment. Of course Marcus had someone. Of course a man that wonderful wasn't available. "She's a lucky woman," Imani said, trying to keep her voice light. "I'm the lucky one. I just hope she'll give me a chance when the time is right." Marcus stood and offered her his hand. "Come on, it's getting late. Let me walk you up." They walked up the now functioning elevator together, and at Imani's door, Marcus hesitated. Imani, I want you to know something. What? You're important. Not just as a tenant, but as a person. If you ever need anything, anything at all, you call me. Day or night. Okay? Okay, Imani whispered, confused by the intensity in his voice. Marcus nodded and walked away, and Imani went into her apartment feeling like something had just shifted between them, but not understanding what. What she didn't know was that Marcus had walked down to the basement, pulled out his phone, and made a call that would change everything. Vincent, I need you to look into something. Imani Carter, 4th floor. She's been having trouble with her student loans, right? I've seen the collection notices. We don't usually involve ourselves in tenants' personal finances, boss. I'm not asking as her landlord. I'm asking as someone who cares about her. Can we buy her debt? Pay it off without her knowing? Mateo. Vincent's voice was careful. You know that's not sustainable. You can't keep hiding who you are from her. Eventually she's going to find out. I know, but not yet. She's not ready yet. Or you're not ready for her to know? Mateo was quiet. Just handle the debt, Vincent. 2 weeks later, Imani received a letter from her loan servicer saying her entire student debt, $68,000, had been forgiven as part of a new program for social workers in underserved areas. She'd cried for an hour, unable to believe that the burden she'd been carrying for years was suddenly gone. She'd run down to tell Marcus, finding him in the utility room, and had thrown her arms around him in joy. My loans are gone, all of them. There was this program I didn't even know about, and they're just gone. Marcus had hugged her back, holding her close, breathing in the scent of her hair, and felt his heart break a little. She was so happy about something he'd done, and she didn't even know it was him. That's amazing, Imani. You deserve it. You deserve everything good. She'd pulled back to look at him, her eyes bright with tears. I feel like I can finally breathe. Like I can actually start saving money, maybe even take a vacation someday. Where would you go? If you could go anywhere. Italy, Imani said without hesitation. I've always wanted to see Rome, Florence, the Amalfi Coast, all those beautiful places. Italy is incredible. You'd love it. Have you been? Yeah, my family's from Italy originally. Haven't been back in a few years, but it's always felt like home. Imani studied his face. Marcus, can I ask you something? And will you give me an honest answer? Always. Who are you? Really? Mateo's heart stopped. What do you mean? I mean, you speak like someone who's educated. You know about art and literature and world travel. You fix everything in this building like a professional, but you also know about business and finance and things most janitors wouldn't know about. Sometimes I feel like you're playing a role and I don't understand why. This was it. The moment Mateo had been both dreading and hoping for. The moment he could tell her the truth. But before he could speak, both their phones buzzed with an emergency alert. There was an active shooter situation at a school 3 blocks away. Imani's phone started ringing immediately. I have to go, she said, already moving toward the door. That's in my district. I have kids there. Imani, wait. I can't wait. Those kids need me. She was already running toward the stairs. Mateo grabbed his phone and called Vincent. Active shooter at Lincoln Elementary. Imani Carter is responding. I want every available man there now. Protect her, but stay out of sight. And get me everything. Police scanner, news feeds, everything. On it, boss. Mateo stripped off his coveralls, revealing the expensive suit he wore underneath. He'd started wearing suits under his maintenance uniform, unable to completely give up who he was. He grabbed his car keys and ran. The Maserati he drove as Mateo Castellano was parked 3 blocks away, where Imani would never see it. He got in and drove toward the school, his mind racing with fear. Imani was walking into a dangerous situation, and every protective instinct he had was screaming at him to stop her, to keep her safe, to use his power and resources to shield her from harm. But he couldn't, because she didn't know who he really was. She thought he was just Marcus the janitor, and Marcus the janitor had no power to command private security teams or demand police attention. By the time Mateo arrived at the school, there were already police cars everywhere. He parked and tried to get close, but the perimeter was locked down. He called Vincent. Where is she? Inside. She went in with the first responders to help evacuate kids. Boss, she's in the actual building. Mateo felt his blood run cold. Get our people inside. I don't care if they have to pose as cops or SWAT or whatever. Get them inside and make sure she's protected. Already on it. We've got 3 guys inside, 2 outside. She won't even know they're there. The next 2 hours were the longest of Mateo's life. He stood behind the police barriers, watching, waiting, unable to do anything. He'd built an empire, commanded respect and fear from the most dangerous people in Chicago, but in this moment he was powerless. Finally, he saw her. Imani was walking out of the school, her arm around a little girl who was crying. Behind her were more children, all of them safe. The shooter had been caught before anyone was hurt, but the trauma was real. Imani was coordinating with other social workers, making sure every child had somewhere safe to go, someone to care for them. She was magnificent, brave and compassionate, and entirely focused on the kids who needed her. Mateo wanted to go to her, but he couldn't. Not as Mateo Castellano in his expensive suit with his security team hovering nearby. So he got back in his car and drove back to the Madison building, changed back into his coveralls, and waited. Imani came home 4 hours later, exhausted and emotionally drained. She found Marcus sitting on the steps outside the building. "You waited for me," she said, tears filling her eyes. "Of course I did. I saw the news. I knew you'd been there." Imani sat down next to him, and without thinking, she leaned her head on his shoulder. Marcus wrapped his arm around her, holding her close. "It was so scary, Marcus. Those babies were so scared. I just kept thinking about all the kids I couldn't reach, all the ones who didn't have anyone to protect them. You were there. You helped. That's all you can do. Is it enough? Is it ever enough? For those kids you saved today? It's everything." Marcus kissed the top of her head without thinking, then tensed, waiting for her to pull away. But Imani didn't pull away. She burrowed closer. "I'm so tired of being alone in this. So tired of going home to an empty apartment after seeing terrible things. So tired of not having someone who understands. You're not alone. I'm here. But that's just it. You're here as my friend, as the janitor who's nice to me. But Marcus, I want more. I want—" She stopped, suddenly aware of what she was about to say. Mateo's heart was pounding. "What do you want? Imani?" She pulled back to look at him, and in her eyes he saw the same thing he felt. Want, need, love. "I want you," she whispered. "I know that's crazy. I know you said you were waiting for someone else, but I can't help how I feel. You're the best man I know, and I'm falling for you. Imani." "You don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know. After today, after thinking about how a short life can be, I needed to be honest." She started to stand, but Marcus caught her hand. "Don't go, please." "Marcus, I just made things weird between us. I should—" "The woman I'm waiting for?" Marcus said, his voice rough with emotion. "It's you. It's always been you." Imani stared at him. "What?" "From the first day I met you, when you were moving in and you were so determined and beautiful and fierce, I've been falling for you every single day since then." "Then why didn't you say anything?" "Because I'm not who you think I am. And I was afraid that when you knew the truth, you'd run." "What truth?" "Marcus, you're scaring me." This was it. No more hiding, no more lies. Mateo stood and offered her his hand. "Come with me. There's something I need to show you." Imani took his hand, confusion and hope warring on her face. Marcus led her to the building's office, a space he'd converted into his temporary workspace. He unlocked the door and turned on the lights. The office was full of screens showing security feeds from all over the city. A computer displayed financial statements for Castellano Holdings. On the desk was mail addressed to Mateo Castellano at this building's address. "I don't understand," Imani said, looking around. "Why do you have all this? What is this?" "My name isn't Marcus. It's Mateo. Mateo Castellano." He watched her face, waiting for recognition. It came slowly. "Castellano? Like the Castellano hotels? The construction company? She stopped, her eyes widening. "The crime family?" "Yes, all of it. I own this building, Imani. I own 47 other properties in Chicago. I own restaurants, businesses, half the downtown core. I'm one of the wealthiest men in the city." Imani took a step back. "You've been lying to me. This whole time you've been pretending to be a janitor when you're actually—" "What? A mobster? A billionaire?" "Both. Neither. It's complicated." Mateo ran his hand through his hair. My family has been in Chicago for 3 generations. We've built legitimate businesses alongside less legitimate ones. I inherited everything when my father retired 5 years ago. And yes, I have connections to organized crime. I won't lie about that. But why? Why pretend to be someone you're not? Because 6 months ago, I saw you moving into a building I own, and something in me just knew you were important, knew I had to know you. But I also knew that if I approached you as Matteo Castellano, you'd see the money and the power and the reputation, and you'd never give me a chance. You'd never see me. So you lied? I did, and I'm sorry. But everything else was real. Every conversation, every moment we shared, every feeling I have for you. That's all real. Imani was shaking her head, tears streaming down her face. I told you things, Marcus, Matteo, whatever your name is. I told you about my life, my struggles, and the whole time you were this wealthy, powerful person who could have solved my problems with pocket change. I did solve some of them. Your student loans, that was me. The elevator getting fixed, the security upgrades in the building, the gift cards that kept appearing in your mailbox. All of it was me trying to make your life easier without you knowing. You paid off my student loans? Imani's voice was barely a whisper. $68,000? It was nothing. A drop in the bucket compared to what you mean to me. It wasn't nothing to me. It was my burden, my responsibility. You had no right. You're right. I'm sorry. I just wanted to help. I wanted to take some of the weight off your shoulders. Imani wrapped her arms around herself. I need to think. I need time. Imani, please. No. I just told you I was falling for you, and now I find out everything about you's a lie? I need space. I need to figure out what's real and what isn't. Matteo felt his heart breaking, but he nodded. Okay. Take all the time you need. But Imani, one thing is real. I love you. I love you so much it terrifies me. That's the one truth that's never changed. Imani looked at him, her eyes swimming with tears and confusion and hurt. Then she turned and walked out. Matteo stood alone in his office, surrounded by the trappings of his real life, and felt more powerless than he'd ever felt pretending to be a janitor. For the next week, Imani avoided Matteo completely. She used the stairs to avoid running into him in the elevator. She left for work early and came home late. When maintenance issues came up, she submitted them online and made sure she wasn't home when they were fixed. She was hurt and confused and angry. Angry at him for lying, but also angry at herself for falling for someone who wasn't real. Or was he real? That was the question that kept her up at night. Marcus the janitor had been kind and helpful and genuine. But he wasn't real. He was a role that Matteo Castellano had been playing. But the feelings had been real. She believed that much. The way he'd looked at her, the way he'd been there for her, the way he'd held her after the school shooting. That couldn't all be fake. On the 8th day, Imani came home to find an envelope taped to her door. Inside was a handwritten letter. Imani, it began, I know you need space, and I'm trying to respect that. But there are some things I need you to know. Things I should have told you from the beginning. My name is Matteo Castellano. I'm 33 years old. I was born in Chicago, but my family is from Sicily. I took over the family's business when I was 28, after my father decided he wanted to retire. I never wanted this life. I wanted to be an architect, believe it or not. I wanted to design buildings, not own them. But family is everything in my world, and when my father asked me to take over, I couldn't say no. I've done things I'm not proud of. I've hurt people in business. I've made choices that benefited me at others' expense. I've lived in a world where power and money are the only things that matter. And then I met you. You were carrying a box of books up 4 flights of stairs, sweating and determined, and you looked at me like I was just another person. Not Matteo Castellano with all the baggage that name carries. Just a guy offering to help. I should have told you who I was then. But I was selfish. I wanted more of that feeling. The feeling of being seen as just a man, not as a name or a reputation or a bank account. So I made a choice. I became Marcus. I learned to fix sinks and change light bulbs and maintain a building. I worked as a janitor in my own property because it meant I could see you every day. Was it deceptive? Yes. Was it wrong? Probably. But was it the best 6 months of my life? Absolutely. Because for 6 months, I got to be the man I always wanted to be. Someone useful. Someone who made a difference in small ways. Someone who earned your respect and friendship through actions, not money. I know I hurt you. I know I broke your trust. But I need you to know that every moment we shared was real. Every conversation, every laugh, every time I helped you with groceries or fixed your sink or just sat with you after a hard day. That was me. The real me. The me I want to be. I love you, Imani Carter. I love your strength and your compassion and the way you fight for people who can't fight for themselves. I love that you see the good in everyone, even when they don't deserve it. I love the way you laugh and the way you cry and the way you never give up. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm asking for it anyway. I'm asking for a chance to show you who I really am. Not Marcus the janitor or Mateo the billionaire, but just me, the man who loves you more than anything. If you can't forgive me, I understand. I'll make sure you never have to see me again. I'll hire a management company for this building, and you'll never have to deal with the man who lied to you. But if there's even a small part of you that thinks we might have something real, come to the address below tomorrow night at 7. I want to show you something. No tricks, no lies, just the truth. Yours, Mateo. Below the letter was an address in one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in Chicago. Imani read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down her face. Part of her wanted to ignore it to protect herself from more hurt, but another part, the part that had fallen for Marcus despite every logical reason not to, wanted to give him a chance. She thought about all the times he'd helped her, all the small kindnesses that had made her difficult life easier. She thought about the way he'd looked at her, the way he'd held her, the way he'd been there exactly when she needed someone, and she made a decision. The next evening at 6:45, Imani stood outside a massive brownstone in Lincoln Park. The address Mateo had given her was a 3-story mansion that probably cost more than she'd earned in her entire lifetime. She almost turned around. This was his world, a world where she didn't belong. But then the door opened and Mateo stood there. He wasn't wearing coveralls. He was in jeans and a simple black sweater, and he looked nervous. More nervous than she'd ever seen him. "You came?" he said, and the relief in his voice was palpable. "I almost didn't." "I'm glad you did. Come in, please." Imani walked into the house and was immediately struck by how beautiful it was. High ceilings, original molding, artwork that probably cost millions. But it was also clearly a home, not just a showpiece. There were books everywhere, comfortable furniture, photographs on the walls. "This is your house?" Imani asked. "Yes. I've lived here for 5 years. It was my father's before that." "It's beautiful." "Thank you, but I didn't bring you here to show off. I brought you here to show you something else. Come with me." Mateo led her through the house to a room on the 2nd floor. He opened the door, and Imani gasped. It was an art studio, a beautiful light-filled space with drafting tables and architectural models and drawings pinned to every wall. The drawings were incredible. Buildings, parks, community centers, all designed with care and detail. "You did these?" Imani asked, walking closer to examine them. "Yes. This is what I do when I'm not running the business. This is what I wanted to do with my life before obligation took over." Mateo pointed to one drawing in particular. "This is a community center I'm planning to build in Englewood. It'll have after-school programs, tutoring, job training, healthcare services, everything that neighborhood needs." "This is amazing, Mateo." "This one is a housing development, affordable apartments with on-site childcare and social services. And this one is a school, fully funded, in one of the poorest neighborhoods in the city." Imani looked at all the drawings, at all the care and thought that had gone into them. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because I want you to see who I really am. Not just the janitor and not just the billionaire, but the person in between. The person who wants to use what he has to make things better." Mateo moved to stand beside her. "When I met you, I was going through the motions of my life. Running businesses, making money, doing what was expected of me. But I wasn't living. I wasn't making a difference. And now I want to build these things. I want to use my resources to create the kind of change you create every day, with your work. I want to be worthy of you." Imani felt tears sliding down her cheeks. "You don't have to be worthy of me, Mateo. I'm just a social worker. You're not just anything. You're extraordinary. And you made me want to be extraordinary too." Imani turned to face him fully. "Why did you really become a janitor in my building? Tell me the truth." "Because when I first saw you, something in me recognized you, recognized that you were going to be important to me, and I knew that if I approached you as Mateo Castellano, With all the power and money and reputation that comes with that name, you'd never give me a real chance. You'd see the lifestyle and the wealth and all the reasons we shouldn't be together. So you thought lying was better? No, I thought getting to know you was better. I thought if you knew me, the real me, before you knew about everything else, we might have a chance. Matteo took her hands in his. I know I went about it the wrong way. I know I should have been honest from the start, but I don't regret getting to know you. I don't regret falling in love with you. I don't know if I can trust you, Imani said quietly. How do I know what's real and what's not? I'll prove it to you. However long it takes, I'll prove that my feelings are real. Matteo squeezed her hands. Ask me anything. Any question about my life, my business, my past. I'll tell you the truth. All of it. So Imani asked. She asked about his family business, about the legal and illegal sides of his empire. She asked about the violence, the moral compromises, the choices he'd made. And Matteo answered everything honestly, not hiding the darker parts of his world. I'm trying to change things, he said. I'm moving away from the criminal enterprises, focusing on legitimate business. It's slow and it's complicated, but I'm doing it. Because I don't want to be that person anymore. I want to be someone you can be proud of. And what if I can't accept that world? What if it's too much? Then I'll walk away from it completely. I'll sell everything, liquidate all my holdings, and we'll start over somewhere else. I'll be Marcus the janitor for real if that's what it takes. You'd give up billions of dollars for me? I'd give up everything for you, because none of it means anything if I can't share it with you. Imani looked into his eyes and saw the truth there. He meant it. This powerful, wealthy man would give up everything for her. I don't want you to give up everything, she said slowly. I just want honesty. I want to know who you really are, all the parts, good and bad. Can you give me that? Yes, I promise you, no more lies, no more hiding. And I want to meet your family. I want to see your world, understand it. I'll arrange it. My mother has been dying to meet you anyway. Your mother knows about me? My whole family knows about you. I haven't shut up about you for 6 months. Matteo smiled, that warm, genuine smile she'd fallen for. They think I've lost my mind, pretending to be a janitor, but my mother said something wise. She said, if you'll do something that crazy for love, then she must be special. Despite everything, Imani found herself smiling. Your mother sounds smart. She is. She also said that a woman who can make you want to be a better man is a woman you should never let go. I'm still angry at you, Imani said. I'm still hurt that you lied. I know, and you have every right to be. But I also understand why you did it, and I believe your feelings are real. She took a deep breath. So here's what's going to happen. We're going to start over, from the beginning. You're going to court me properly as Matteo Castellano, and I'm going to decide if I can accept all the parts of you, the good, the bad, and the complicated. Hope bloomed in Matteo's chest. You're giving me a chance? I'm giving us a chance. Because the truth is, I fell in love with you too. With Marcus, with the man who carried my groceries and fixed my sink, and was there when I needed someone. And I think that man is the real you, whether you're wearing coveralls or a suit. You won't regret this, Matteo said, pulling her close. I promise you, I'll spend every day proving that I'm worth your trust. You'd better, Imani said, but she was smiling. Because if you lie to me again, I'm keeping the building and half the city. Matteo laughed and kissed her, and Imani kissed him back, finally letting herself feel everything she'd been holding in. Love and hope and the terrifying possibility of happiness. The next few months were a revelation for both of them. Matteo introduced Imani to his world, slowly and carefully. She met his mother, Maria, who welcomed her with open arms and told her stories about Matteo as a child. She met his sister, Sophia, who was thrilled to have another woman in the family who could stand up to Matteo. Imani saw the business empire Matteo had built, the legitimate and the questionable. He showed her everything, held nothing back, and slowly, Imani began to understand the complexity of his world. She also saw the changes he was making, the criminal enterprises being shut down or sold off, the legitimate businesses being expanded, the community projects being funded and built. Matteo was transforming his empire, and he was doing it for her, but he was also doing it for himself. Because pretending to be Marcus had shown him what he really wanted from life. Not power or wealth or respect born from fear, but purpose. The ability to make a real difference. Together, they started planning the community center in Inglewood. Imani used her expertise in social services to help design the programs. Matteo provided the funding and the vision. It was a partnership that combined their strengths perfectly. "This is what I want," Matteo told her one evening. They were working late in his study, surrounded by blueprints and grant proposals. "Not just this project, but this. Working with you, building something that matters." "You know I can't quit my job, right?" Imani said. "Even if I wanted to, which I don't, I have kids who depend on me. I would never ask you to quit. Your work is important. But maybe we could combine our efforts, use my resources to support the kind of work you do." "Like a foundation?" "Exactly like a foundation. The Castellano-Carter Foundation for Children and Families." Imani looked up from the blueprint she'd been studying. "You want my name on it?" "Of course I do. This is as much your vision as mine. More, actually. You're the one who knows what these communities need." "Matteo Castellano, are you asking me to be your partner?" "In every way possible," Matteo said, pulling out a small box from his desk drawer, "including this way." He opened the box to reveal a stunning engagement ring, simple but elegant, with a single diamond surrounded by smaller stones. "I know we've only been officially together for a few months," Matteo said, "but I've loved you for almost a year. I've known you were the one since the day we met. So, Imani Carter, will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life proving that I'm worthy of you?" Imani felt tears streaming down her face. "You don't have to prove anything anymore. You already showed me who you are. Yes, yes, I'll marry you." Matteo slipped the ring on her finger and kissed her deeply, and Imani felt her whole world shift. She was engaged to one of the most powerful men in Chicago. She was going to be Imani Castellano. It was terrifying and wonderful all at once. They got married 6 months later in a small ceremony at Matteo's house. Just family and close friends. Imani wore a simple white dress, and Matteo wore a suit, and they said vows they'd written themselves. "I promise to always be honest with you," Matteo said, tears in his eyes. "To show you every part of me, even the parts I'm not proud of. I promise to support your work and your dreams, and I promise that whether I'm in coveralls or a suit, I'll always be the man who would do anything to make you smile." "I promise to trust you," Imani said, "to believe in the man you're becoming and support you in that journey. I promise to challenge you when you're wrong and celebrate you when you're right. And I promise to never forget that the janitor who carried my groceries and the billionaire who wants to change the world are the same person, the man I love." They kissed as husband and wife, and everyone cheered. It was perfect. For their honeymoon, Matteo took Imani to Italy. They visited Rome and Florence and the Amalfi Coast, all the places she dreamed of seeing. They ate incredible food, saw breathtaking art, and fell even more deeply in love. In Sicily, Matteo showed her the village where his grandparents were born. They met distant relatives who welcomed Imani with the same warmth Maria had. And Imani understood more about where Matteo came from, the culture and family bonds that had shaped him. "Thank you for bringing me here," Imani said one evening. They were sitting on a terrace overlooking the Mediterranean, drinking wine and watching the sunset. "I feel like I understand you better now." "And do you still love me, even knowing everything?" "Especially knowing everything, because I see how hard you're working to be better, to build something good." Imani took his hand. "I'm proud of you, Matteo, proud to be your wife." "I'm the lucky one. I'm married to the most incredible woman I've ever met." Matteo kissed her hand. "I love you, Imani Castellano." "I love you too, even if you did trick me by pretending to be a janitor." "Hey, I was a very good janitor. Fixed your sink perfectly." "You really did. Best fake janitor I've ever met." They laughed together, and Imani thought about how much her life had changed in a year. She'd gone from struggling alone in a tiny apartment to being married to a man who loved her completely, who supported her work, who wanted to use his resources to make the world better. It was like a fairy tale, except better because it was real. When they returned to Chicago, Imani moved into Matteo's brownstone. It took some adjustment. She'd never lived in a house so large, never had staff or the kind of luxury that came with Matteo's wealth. But slowly, she made it her home too. She added her books to his library. She hung pictures of her mother and her foster siblings on the walls. She claimed the sunroom as her office space for when she worked from home. And Matteo loved every change she made, loved the way she brought warmth and life to a house that had always felt a bit too formal, too empty. The Madison building got a new maintenance manager, a qualified professional who actually knew what he was doing. But sometimes, late at night, Mateo would go back there, would walk through the building he'd worked in as Marcus, remembering the best 6 months of his life. "Missing your janitor days?" Imani asked him one night when he came home late. "Sometimes. It was simpler, just me and a mop bucket, and the woman I loved living 4 floors up. You can still fix things around here if you miss it. The guest bathroom sink has been dripping." "I'll get right on that, Mrs. Castellano." "That's Mrs. Carter Castellano to you. I'm keeping my name professionally." "I wouldn't have it any other way." 1 year after their wedding, the Inglewood Community Center opened. It was everything they'd envisioned and more. A beautiful modern building with classrooms, a gym, a health clinic, and dedicated spaces for after-school programs and job training. Imani stood at the ribbon-cutting ceremony, looking at the building she'd helped create, and felt overwhelmed with emotion. This was what she'd always wanted to do, make a real, lasting difference in communities that needed support. "Thank you," she whispered to Mateo, who was standing beside her. "Thank you for showing me what really matters," he said back. "This is your vision. I just provided the means. We're a good team. The best team." They cut the ribbon together and the community poured in, excited and grateful. Local kids explored the gym. Parents inquired about the job training programs. Community leaders thanked Mateo and Imani for investing in their neighborhood. It was the first of many projects. Over the next few years, the Carter Castellano Foundation built 3 more community centers, 2 affordable housing developments, and funded programs in schools across Chicago. Mateo continued to transform his business empire, moving away from anything questionable and focusing on legitimate enterprises that could create jobs and support communities. It wasn't easy, and it took time, but he was determined. And Imani continued her work as a social worker, though now she had resources to help the families she worked with. When a kid needed new clothes, she could provide them. When a family needed help with rent, she could make it happen. She was still working within the system, but she had the power to actually solve problems. 3 years after they married, Imani came home from work to find Mateo sitting in the living room with a strange expression on his face. "What's wrong?" she asked immediately. "Nothing's wrong. Actually, something's very right. Come sit down." Imani sat beside him, her heart pounding. "You're scaring me." "Don't be scared. I just got some news." Mateo took her hand. "Remember how you always said you wished you could do more for kids in foster care? Actually help them instead of just managing cases? Of course. It's my biggest frustration with the system. What if you could? What if we built a home specifically for kids aging out of foster care? Give them a safe place to live while they transition to independence with support services and job training and everything they need? That would be incredible. But the cost, I've already worked it out. I found a property, an old hotel that we can renovate. It can house up to 30 young people with staff support 24/7. We can call it Carter House." Tears filled Imani's eyes. "You want to name it after me? After you and your mother? After the woman who raised you in her own foster home and showed you what love looked like? Sarah Carter House? What do you think?" Imani threw her arms around him, sobbing. "I think you're the most incredible man I've ever known. I think I can't believe I get to spend my life with you." "Is that a yes?" "Yes. Yes to all of it." Sarah Carter House opened 2 years later. It was a beautiful space, renovated with care, and designed to feel like a real home. Young people aging out of foster care could live there rent-free for up to 2 years while they got on their feet. They received job training, counseling, educational support, and most importantly, a community. Imani ran the program herself, cutting back her hours at DCFS to focus on this work, and it was the most fulfilling thing she'd ever done. She got to see kids she'd once case-managed thriving in a supportive environment. She got to watch them grow and succeed and break the cycle of poverty and instability. "This is your legacy," Mateo told her one evening. They were at Sarah Carter House for a community dinner, surrounded by residents and staff and volunteers. "This is going to change lives for generations." "Our legacy," Imani corrected. "I couldn't have done this without you. We make a good team. The best team." On their 5th wedding anniversary, Mateo took Imani back to the Madison building. He'd kept her old apartment exactly as it was, preserving it as a memory of where their story began. "Why did you keep it?" Imani asked, walking through the tiny studio that had once been her whole world. Because this is where I fell in love with you. This is where you let Marcus the janitor into your life. I never wanted to forget that. I can't believe I used to live here. It's so small. You made it beautiful, just like you make everything beautiful. Matteo pulled her close. I've been thinking about that day when your grocery bag broke on the stairs. When I first spoke to you as more than just a stranger. Do you remember what you said? I apologize for making a mess. And I told you it was literally my job to clean up messes. I thought I was just being helpful. I didn't know I was starting the greatest adventure of my life. Some adventure? You pretended to be a janitor for 6 months. Best 6 months of my life. Well, second best. The best is every day since you agreed to marry me. Imani laughed and kissed him. You're such a romantic. Only for you. They stood in the tiny apartment where it had all begun, holding each other, and Imani thought about the journey they'd been on. From janitor and tenant to husband and wife. From strangers to partners in love and life and purpose. Can I tell you something? Imani said. Anything. I'm pregnant. Matteo froze. What? I found out this morning. We're going to have a baby. Matteo's face went through about 10 different emotions in 5 seconds before settling on pure joy. He picked Imani up and spun her around, laughing. We're having a baby. We're going to be parents. Put me down. You'll make me dizzy. Matteo set her down gently, his hands immediately going to her still flat stomach. There's a baby in there. Our baby. Our baby, Imani confirmed. Are you happy? Happy? I'm beyond happy. I'm terrified and thrilled and so in love with you I can't even express it. Good, because I'm all those things too. They had a son 9 months later. They named him Marcus, after the man Matteo had pretended to be but who had really been his truest self. Little Marcus had his father's dark eyes and his mother's beautiful smile. Watching Matteo with their son, seeing the gentle way he held Marcus and the fierce way he protected him, Imani fell in love with her husband all over again. You're a natural, she told him one night. Matteo was walking Marcus around the nursery, soothing him back to sleep. I just want to give him everything we didn't have. Stability, safety, a father who's present and involved. He has that. You're already an amazing dad. I learned from the best. You've been saving kids your whole career. Now I get to watch you raise our own. 3 years later, they had a daughter. They named her Sarah, after Imani's mother, and their family was complete. Matteo scaled back his business involvement even more, wanting to be present for his children in a way his own father hadn't been. He focused on the foundation, on the community projects, on building a legacy that his children could be proud of. And Imani continued her work, now balancing motherhood with running Sarah Carter House and serving on the boards of multiple organizations dedicated to child welfare. They raised their children with honesty. Marcus and Sarah knew their father had once been involved in things he wasn't proud of. They knew he'd lied to their mother when they first met. But they also knew that he'd changed, that he'd chosen to be better, and that love and honesty were the foundations of their family. On their 10th anniversary, Matteo and Imani renewed their vows, this time in front of their children and a much larger group of family and friends, this time with no secrets between them. 10 years ago, Matteo said in his vows, I was a janitor who carried your groceries. I fixed your sink and changed your light bulbs and pretended to be someone I wasn't because I was so desperate to be close to you. It was the best decision I ever made, even if I went about it the wrong way. 10 years ago, Imani said, I was struggling alone, convinced I had to carry every burden by myself. And then a kind man showed up and reminded me that accepting help isn't weakness. That love isn't a luxury, but a necessity. You changed everything for me, Matteo. You showed me what partnership really means. They kissed as their children cheered, and everyone celebrated the love story that had started with a lie, but had become the most truthful thing in both their lives. Years continued to pass. Marcus and Sarah grew up in a home filled with love and purpose. They saw their parents working together to make Chicago better. They learned the value of using privilege to help others. They understood that redemption was possible and that everyone deserved a second chance. When Marcus was 16, he asked his father about those early days. Did you really pretend to be a janitor just to meet Mom? I did. It was crazy and probably wrong, but I'd do it again in a heartbeat. Wasn't it hard, hiding who you really were? It was the easiest thing I ever did because I got to be close to her. And honestly, being Marcus the janitor, Taught me more about who I wanted to be than anything else ever did. Do you think Mom would have fallen for you if you'd been honest from the start? Mateo thought about that. I don't know. Maybe. But I think we needed that time. I needed to prove to her and to myself that I could be someone worth loving without the money or the power, and she needed to see me as a person before she saw me as a name. That's kind of romantic, in a weird, slightly stalkery way. Mateo laughed. Your mother says the same thing. On their 20th anniversary, Mateo took Imani back to Italy. Just the two of them, leaving the kids with Maria, who was thrilled to have them. They visited all the places they'd been on their honeymoon, retracing their steps, remembering who they'd been 20 years ago. We were so young, Imani said. They were on the same terrace in Sicily where Mateo had first told her he was proud to be her husband. We thought we had it all figured out. We didn't have anything figured out. We were just two people in love, trying to build something real. And did we? Build something real? Look at what we've created together. Two amazing kids. A foundation that's helped thousands of families. Communities that are stronger because of our work. And a love that's only grown deeper with time. Mateo took her hand. Yeah, we built something real. We built something extraordinary. I love you, Mateo Castellano. I love the janitor who carried my groceries and the billionaire who wants to save the world. I love every version of you. And I love you, Imani Carter Castellano, the woman who saw potential in a man pretending to be someone else, the woman who makes me want to be better every single day. They kissed as the sun set over the Mediterranean, two people who'd found each other in the most unexpected way and had built a life beyond anything they'd imagined. The janitor who'd helped her hadn't just owned the building and half the city. He'd owned her heart, and she'd owned his right back. And together they'd proven that love didn't need status or wealth or power to be real. It just needed honesty, partnership, and the willingness to show up for each other, whether in coveralls or a suit, in a tiny apartment or a mansion, in struggles or in triumphs. That was the real fairy tale. Not the money or the power, but the choice to love fully, honestly, and completely. And they lived it every single day.